Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 209. This time on the podcast, Jen interviews Cindy Etsell on the subject of how to negotiate a job. Here's my tip. Try negotiating by email or text message. It builds in time for you to think before you respond to proposals.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast with me, Jen Swanson, the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. One of the biggest struggles I hear in coaching clients who are going into job interviews is the question of negotiation. It's hard to do it when you feel like you are in a position of powerlessness. When you want the job, you need the job maybe, you are anxious to secure the job. How can you effectively ask for what you need and get a fair offer? My guest today is a career transition coach and mentor to senior executives in the technology sector. Cindy Etsell is an author and a speaker, and I start off asking her what the biggest issue is that stops people from effectively negotiating for themselves in a job search. Find out her answer after this.
Are you procrastinating? Do you want to start a job search but aren't quite sure where to begin? Is it all just a little overwhelming? At Careers by Jen, we have a 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge to help you get unstuck and move toward finding your dream job. Every day for 5 days, you'll receive an email to your inbox that asks you to complete one task. Every task you complete moves you closer toward your goal. The best part about this challenge is that it's absolutely free. Come over to careersbyjen.com and you'll see the 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge on the right-hand side of the screen. Click on the image of Jen, sign up with your email address, and you'll be 5 days closer to reaching your goal. Why wait when you can get busy? Visit careersbyjen.com after this podcast.
So Cindy Etsell, what is the biggest issue that stops people from negotiating effectively in a job search?
I would say the biggest thing is fear. The absolutely number one thing is fear. And from that fear sometimes is to do with confidence.
And what are people afraid of, do you think?
They're afraid they're going to come across as desperate. They're afraid that they're going to be too pushy. They're afraid that if they speak up, they're going to have the job taken away from them and the offer taken away, which is really ironic when 85% of hiring managers expect us to negotiate, according to the latest research.
They expect us to negotiate. Isn't that interesting? And so there's a disconnect somewhere in that.
Absolutely. And what's really scary is, we think, well, men are really good at negotiating, so they probably do a lot of it. And only 38% of men negotiate job offers. But the scary part is women, 16%.
16?
So, 16%.
Oh.
But there is a bit of a social stigma attached to women negotiating versus men. So there is a reason for it, which is a long story in itself. But, there's a few tips and tricks that they can do, both men and women, that will help make that journey easier.
Okay, so we're not doing it as often as we should, even though it is expected by the hiring manager that a negotiation will happen. And so what are the consequences of not negotiating before we get into your tips and tricks?
Well, what I would say is the number one thing is you may not be earning as much as you possibly could. We know that there's a definite gap between certain individuals, and there's definitely a huge gap between men and women in terms of earnings. And it was really, what I found really fascinating, I was reading an article by Professor Babcock, and what she was saying due to her research was that in a woman's lifetime professional career, she will on average earn $500,000 less than a man in the total number of the career. But not only that, it's really hard to negotiate after the fact. So if you go in and you haven't really got what you wanted, you're feeling a bit kind of, God, why didn't I do that? I wish I'd negotiated. I wish I'd asked for this or that. And it's not always about the money.
All right. So what might it be about also?
Well, it could be about, your role, your title. Some people, would say, well, I'm a project manager, but I want to be called a senior project manager, or am I a marketing director or chief marketing officer? It might be about flexible working, so that ability to work not necessarily 5 days a week in an office. It might be helping you with transportation costs. It might be holidays or pension. I was reading an article the other day, and it was saying there's about 33 different things that you can negotiate. When I run workshops, I always ask individuals to help me name them. And I said, I want you to think a little outside the box, you know. But the flexible working is a great one because a lot of people want to be able to drop the kids off. They want to be able to pick them up after school and make up those hours. Some people say, well, you know what, I'm really good in the morning, but I'm not great in the evening. So can I start at 7 and finish at 4 or 3? So there's a lot of things that people forget to ask about. Shadowing's another one. So perhaps I'm a salesperson and I want to move into marketing. So what you can do is ask if you can shadow. You can spend time once a week for a couple of hours working in the marketing team just to see what it would be like, or vice versa. And I've done that with my teams as a sales and marketing director, and it works brilliantly because it opens people's eyes to a new opportunity. It could be as well, it could be a bonus. It could be, you know, how am I going to get, how are my appraisals going to be done? How often? You know, it is amazing. Where am I going to be working? You know, in which office, if there's different locations. The list is really quite long, but people get in their head, it's always about money. And money's a fixed pot. So you can negotiate a bit, and I can tell people how to do that. But really, you know, you need to understand, and you need to be so prepared before you even start that journey.
So the preparation piece of negotiation would be something that you would do before you ever go into the interview, so that you are completely ready in case you're offered the job on the spot. That happens. And in case there is room to negotiate, right?
Absolutely. Preparation is key, but also preparation goes further back than that. You know, it's network, talk to people in the industry, find out what it's like to work at the company, you know, do all of that homework, but also be able to articulate what makes you special, you know, what makes you unique. And when you're in that opportunity and you get offered a job, my recommendation is never accept the first offer. Thank them for that wonderful opportunity, ask for it in writing so you can see everything laid out. So that when you are making a decision, it's a very informed decision based on fact and not what you think you might have remembered or heard.
So that's a good point, is to be able to go away and have some time then?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, I have a great interesting story about one of my clients who had attended one of my negotiation workshops in London. And what happened was he was going literally for the final interview, and he got offered the job. And they kind of went through all the pieces, and he asked to, you know, have it sent to him. And about a week later, he called me and he said, "You're not going to believe what happened." He said, "They offered me £10,000 less than what we'd agreed." So had he accepted on, you know, just accepted it, it would have been too late to go back. It's great. But, you know, it's things like, what's my notice period? You know, what is my anti-competition clause? All those kind of things, it's really, really important. So yeah, you know, you don't want to take too long, of course. But sometimes it might take a week to get, you know, for HR to get you that contract as well. So definitely wait until you read everything. And please read the contract. Please read it in detail. Any questions, now's the time to ask, right?
Do you think sometimes, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, do you think sometimes people are in such a hurry to get that security that they skip these important steps?
Yes, I think the illusion of security and whatever that means, you're absolutely right. We always say to people, there's no such thing. It's an illusion. Whether you're a permanent employee, whether you're a contractor, because this would apply if you're doing contract work as well, or freelance. You know, if you're self-employed, it's also really making sure you dot those I's and cross those T's. But you're absolutely right. They think, so excited, I need that job. You know, I need the security. And, you know, nothing is secure until your feet are under that table. You know, really. But I've had people have offers and have them withdrawn as well.
That must be devastating if you've spent an awful lot of time doing your search.
It is. It's pretty heartbreaking. It's pretty heartbreaking. But better early than late, I guess. You know, yeah, but horrible for the individuals involved. Absolutely.
Now you've been doing this for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit about your story before we get into some hard tips?
Sure, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Canada in Winnipeg, and I had several different roles. Criminologist by training, and then I fell into a sales role in academic publishing. Moved to Vancouver, so your great city. Moved to Vancouver and was offered an opportunity in London. And when I came to London, it was still in the publishing company to launch the product line. Found out they were going to sell the company, and that was my first taste of being in the corporate head office. Yeah, absolutely. It was a big shocker, and I couldn't come back because I'd done non-resident status, so I had to take 2 years and a day to stay in Britain, and that's when the roller coaster began. And it's a long story, but I ended up. I've always been helping individuals through the job process because I've done it so many times myself. I've been made redundant or laid off 4 times. Twice I volunteered. So people are afraid, and they say these days most people will be made redundant 4 times in their career. So I'm now industry average. So I wanted to document that story, and that's when I wrote my book, Cooking Up Success. And it's my journey in the 20 years since moving to the UK and all the political stuff that's happened and the jobs and the interviews. But what I've done is use food as a metaphor. So hence the Cooking Up Success, because if you follow a recipe, you follow a process for the job hunt, CV, everything. So you've got your ingredients for your meal, but you've also got your skills. Pretty similar idea. And that's kind of how I got started. And then my last redundancy was, I can't remember, about 3 years ago. And I just decided I didn't want to work for a big corporate giant as a permanent employee anymore. So I started this journey, and loving every minute of it, getting to do what I love, which is and helping people. And the look on their face when they find that job or start the business they've always wanted or retrained is phenomenally powerful and really heartwarming.
And cooking up success, you named it that also, I read, because you are passionate about cooking.
I am absolutely passionate about cooking. I've been cooking since, about 8-9 years old. One of 6 kids, big family, not a lot of money, and my mom and my grandparents loved baking, so they did. I would just stand there and watch. And I always remember one little story about when you're making a cake, traditional cake. You got to make sure you cream the butter and the sugar first. And my mom would say, watch it turn color. That's the color you want before you do. So, and I just thought it's such a great analogy to combine my 2 loves, people and food, and create that into a story. So when I'm running a workshop, I run them in a kitchen, if I can. Yeah. They're not cooking, but it's that warm environment. And I partner with Cooking Joy, which is based near where I am. And she always serves food as well, but all healthy food. Pea hummus and carrot fritters, and have a little wine, unless it's in the day. We might have a coffee then. But always great fun.
And here's me, haven't had lunch yet. Now I'm hungry.
Terribly sorry for that. But what it does is it breaks down barriers, because all of us love food in one way or another, and it just seems to cut through the fear, and help build that confidence and engagement with the individuals in the room. And of course, I get them really interactive and doing things together. So I don't stand and talk at them for 3 hours.
Perfect. Well, Cindy, that's a good segue for us to stop for a second. We'll take a break. And when we come back, I want to hear some of your tips for how to go about negotiating, especially when you're afraid.
You've updated your resume, you've sent it out, and you've been selected for an interview. Congratulations. And now you want to get ready, really ready. This is where Careers by Jen can help. We have a comprehensive online course called How to Ace a Job Interview When You Haven't Interviewed in a Long Time. This video-based course is jam-packed with information, advice, and exercises to help you get completely prepared to walk into an interview situation with confidence. From exactly what to prepare in advance, to how to answer common questions, to what questions you might ask the interviewer, and so much more, this course is designed to get you ready. Visit careersbyjen.com and click on Training Resources to see the curriculum, preview a couple of the introductory lessons, and see what others who have taken the course are saying about it. Visit careersbyjen.com and get ready to ace your next interview.
So I'm speaking with Cindy Etsell, and we are going to be talking now about how to negotiate a job in simple steps, like a recipe.
I like a recipe. Well, the most important thing is you must understand what your core ingredients are, your core skills. And the way to do that is to start at the beginning. So what happens is people write a CV or a resume, and what they do is they list a whole bunch of things, but doesn't tell the reader anything. So if you can take each of those steps, each of those tasks that you've done, and identify an outcome. So by doing A, I've achieved B, that will help you when it comes to your negotiation. So the first step is be prepared, network, find out as much information as you can online. If you're applying online, a lot of companies now are not putting the salary on. So make sure you try and find out, go and research it, go and check out different job descriptions that do have salaries so you get a pretty good view. And if someone says to you, how much money do you want? Just ask how much are they offering. And a tip is to say, so if someone says about the salary and say the job is offering you, I don't know, 30,000 and you want 40, there should be usually a bit of maneuverability. And what you can say is, you're offering 30. I'm really looking for around 40. Is there any negotiation on that? And if they say no, or they say we can't quite stretch to that, you could say, can we meet somewhere in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you if you can find out salary by looking at places like LinkedIn. Sometimes if you pay for the premium version of LinkedIn, sometimes they sort jobs with salary ranges listed.
But you can do that on LinkedIn. You don't even really need premium to do that, because you can just go and Google different companies, different industries, Glassdoor, look at different reviews on companies' site, look at their last annual reports. You get a really good feel, but nothing beats going and doing your homework and going and talking to people.
Perfect.
Really, really, really important, because then they give you the real goods.
Mm-hmm.
It's then the next big tip I would always say to someone, other than salary, what's the one thing that you must have as part of your package, or you will walk away from the job? So for me, it's flexible working, always has been. So think about what that one thing is. And I always get people to write that down immediately, because then they need to have the courage to walk away if they're not going to get it. But then also think about benefits. So what's really important, understanding the values, the values and your priorities in life will help you think about what can I negotiate and what's important. For some people, it might be childcare vouchers. It might be the pension. It might be the number of holidays. It might be flex time. It might be a job share. There's so many different components. And you don't want to walk into a negotiation with, a huge list, of 30 or 40 things. Try and stick to 3 to 5, because the onus will always be on you if there's an impasse to come up and say, well, what about this? Is this a possibility? And it's always about that trying to find that win-win. You want both people to walk away with a great perception, of that win-win event. And negotiations of perception is value. It's all about the value you're bringing. And most people don't in any way articulate that whatsoever. It's scary, really.
It is. And I know when I do my coaching sessions and the course that I offer on interview skills, I talk about that. I start with what exactly is it that you are wanting, and what, I ask them what is an absolute necessity, because if you're not clear on your own boundaries and your own needs and what you need to be able to accept this position, then you're kind of going in blind to one of these sessions, and will come out feeling dissatisfied before you even begin the job, which is not a good way to start.
No, it's not a good way to start. And if you asked me before about the fear and the confidence, if you do that homework, lay the foundation, which we were just talking about, and really be able to pull out. So, I was given an example. So say I'm a marketer, and part of my role is to drive pipeline, so that I can drive pipeline. But if I just put that down, it doesn't mean anything. But if I say I transformed a crippled pipeline from 3 million to 6 million in 7 months by getting sales and marketing to work together, that tells everyone so much more. And you can articulate that, So Jen, why should I hire you instead of someone else? Exactly as you were saying on the interview. Well, because I've never missed my number in the last 7 years, increase in target, boom, boom, and I've kept it percentage 5 to 10% over quota. or, I was able to change a process which saved the company X amount of time, increased productivity. And really pulling that out of people before you get to that is, a lot of people don't want to do the work.
No, a lot of people don't want to do the work. And I think a lot of people don't always realize what they've already got as far as skills and experience and outcomes that they've already produced. And I think doing that homework allows people to say, oh, wow, I can do this and I am of value. Maybe if not to this company, to the next one.
So true. And then what it does is it builds confidence. I also do a lot of work around body language. Mm-hmm. So I run workshops on body language. And so when you take that outcomes that you've got, you add the body language so you can see and hear how you come across. You add that to creating that networking strategy, add the interview techniques, and you go from zero to hero in boom seconds. And it is so obvious to the company thinking, wow, that person is going to be a gold mine for me. So it's worth the work. And it can be painful, as you and I both know, working and coaching people to help through that transition. It can be, no. And I find it's every step of the way. A lot of people will say, well, yeah, if it's easier for senior people, but it's not. Because we're all head down doing a job and we forget about the process we've taken and the outcomes.
Well, and for some people, the last interview they had and the last negotiation they had was years ago, in some cases decades ago, if you're doing a sort of mid-career transition. And so you forget, how do I do this? What am I supposed to do? Especially if you've moved your way up through an organization and have been given jobs and it's, and suddenly you're switching to an entirely different industry or a different company. It can be very intimidating to start this whole process.
That's why having a coach is really helpful. And what I do with my coaching is with my clients is I get them to sign an agreement right up front that says you're willing to make that commitment. Because if you're not in it to win it, then you're not going to move forward. It's so true everything you say. And some people have been in a job 30 years and they have never had to write a resume or a CV. And it's like, oh my God, where do I start? My thing is start at the beginning. Start at the last job you've had and start with the 5 things that you spend most of your day doing and tell me a story about them.
Right. Excellent. So do you have more tips in the list that you had there?
Yes, I do. So when you're negotiating an offer, the biggest thing that you can do is try and make sure you do it in person, face to face. So, even if you can't meet them in terms physically, virtually works really well. Make sure that you're doing it. And a lot of people will be working through recruiters. And, if you've got a really good relationship with that recruiter and you're not comfortable in negotiating, then get the recruiter to help you. But if you are really comfortable, every time you're working with the recruiter, as amazing as they can be, or not, as the case may be, depending, it's going to slow the process down. So, keep them in the loop. Say, are you okay if I do this negotiation? I'll keep you in the loop every step of the way. Make sure you do that. But also, as you're, when you're negotiating, pausing works brilliantly. So when you put something on the table and then have silence, it freaks them out all the time.
Filling that void. Got to jump in there.
Got to jump in, exactly. So when you do that, it's amazingly powerful. And what I would always say, as I said, be prepared, be flexible, be patient, be very, very confident. And, if it comes to that point where you're at an impasse and there's no way they're going to give you that one thing that you want, then the ability to walk away gracefully is really important. And my tip on doing that is to thank them so much for the opportunity and say, I'm really sorry, I'm going to need to decline. Are you sure that we can't move anywhere to address this whatever that number one thing may be? Sometimes they will revisit that. Sometimes they'll be shocked that you're willing to walk away. But you should be able to find that one thing out really quite early up front. And the other thing is a lot of people get a bit freaked about when they're looking at the flexible working thing. And so one of the tricks I always use is when I'm in the interviews or when I'm talking to people, I would say, so, what's the office like during the day? Is everybody here? Are people out and about? Some people in the office, some people work from home. So you're asking the question without asking the question. You'll get a real view if they're silent. Everybody has to be in the office from 9 to 5. You know that might not be the job for you, or it might be if you hate working from home, which a lot of people do as well.
Right.
There's so many other things to think about, but making the list and understanding the benefits. And also, if you're negotiating a contract, be very clear on what type of contract that is. Is it a temp to perm contract? Is it a fixed term contract? Is it a freelance contract? Is it an interim contract? An interim, a lot of people confuse, especially in the UK, they confuse it with a contract. It is a contract, but most people who are interim specialists are limited companies. And this is what they do. And it usually tends to be that director level. Someone's left, they need someone to come in and fill those shoes, hire, recruit someone, and train them and get them up to speed. Some people end up staying, but most people would move on to the next contract because they want the variety and change. And I could go on and on.
That's a specialty in itself.
It is a specialty in itself. Yeah. And, fixed term contracts, a lot in my experience, continue to roll. I mean, I was at HP on a fixed term contract, Hewlett Packard, for 6 months. I was there 3 years until I left to go to a different company. So I think, if you're at that negotiation stage and they say something to you like, we're really sorry, we've had the headcount pulled, it's a great time to say, would you be open to me doing a temporary contract until that headcount becomes available? Mm-hmm. Because headcount and contracts, headcount in most cases is a separate pot of money. So if you can find a way to get in the door, let's face it, you'd be on a 3-month probation period most times anyway. Mm-hmm. Just a little tip to think about if you are at that point. And lately I've seen it happening a lot.
So Cindy, if people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on my website, which is cookingupsuccess.co.uk. They can check out Cindy Etsell on my LinkedIn. And they can find my book, which is Cooking Up Success, Helping You Discover the Job of Your Dreams, on all of the platforms, Apple, Amazon, Kobo, can't even remember all the others. There's many.
Goodreads.
Exactly. And, and I love to hear from people. So if they have a question, we've got a contact form and contact details on my website, as well on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out at any time.
Perfect. And if you have one last piece of advice for the Careers by Jen listener, what would it be?
Please, please, please do your homework. Lay that foundation. It will help you in every step of the career process, from getting your resume, CV in perfect nick, to the job hunt, to the interview, and even and to the negotiation. So it is absolutely, if you want to stir the pot and you want to cook up a souffle that's going to be amazing, do your homework and lay the foundation. That's my most, I think, the best tip I can give anyone, because I know it works.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation. It's been a delight today.
My pleasure. It's lovely. And wave to Vancouver for me as well.
I will. You've been listening to Careers by Jen with Jen Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. If every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big, just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.